Question I ask ourselves and ask you to think about, you may be tired of having to answer it, are you living a happy life? We've probably got tired of the song a long time ago, Be Happy. Well, I'll be happy when I want to be happy. Don't force me to be happy. And that's very true in our particular time. But you think about our country, we have a right to pursue happiness. And we have a right to pick what that happiness is. We have the freedom to do that, according to our documents. And we need to realize that we should be the happiest people around. But it hasn't been too many decades, and this may surprise you, it has been too many decades that a survey was taken, pooling people's thoughts and people all over the world. And places like Mexico, places like Venezuela, places like that, Nigeria, they were happier people than people in the United States, according to that particular survey. Now, I don't think that's happening now. Things change. But America was in that time number 16. And yet we have in our documents that we can pursue happiness any way we want it. So what do? Well, we ask ourselves, what is our pursuit? Is it accumulation of wealth? A lot of people are looking at it that particular way. That I will see how much money I can gain. And we see that becomes a goal of people in life. But as we realize from experiences and what happens when people have a windfall of winning the lottery, you have happy lives. Many of them do not. And things happen. You'll always want to desire more and to be able to get more. Then you're going to try to hold on to what you have. And that becomes your God. That becomes why you do certain things that you do. And people are not happy. So that's not the route that we can go. What about the idea of achieving goals? And we get into the areas of workaholics, because I got a goal in front of me all the time. These are things I need to accomplish. And when I get through that goal, I got another goal to accomplish. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a rat race. More money, more goals to make me happy. I can achieve them. I can achieve this goal and achieve that goal and work for this one and just put them on my list. And I will be happy? Not necessarily. That doesn't do that. But I'll tell you one thing that people would probably say, if I can avoid suffering, I'll be happy. I will avoid suffering. We take a pill and we're happy. We got through that pain, we're happy. And if we just avoid suffering, we'll be happy. Psychologist Carl Jung said the foundation for all mental illness is avoiding legitimate suffering. That's mental illness. And he has that all through the people he studies. Notice avoiding legitimate suffering. Suffering in itself is not something that will avoid that I'll be happy. There's legitimate suffering, but mental illness says I've got to avoid all suffering. Got to avoid it all. And if I have consequences here, consequences there, I got to avoid that. And that's a part of mental illness. And what's interesting to me is that we're going to explore this morning is that what does God have to say about being happy? Why don't we look to our Creator, realizing that America's goals aren't working too well because we have so many people that are unhappy today with COVID, out COVID, all the things connected, what's been happening, and we're trying to get back to normal, whatever that is. People are not happy. But once we find ourselves as Christians, we ought to be the happiest people in the universe because of what God tells us. We want to explore that with you this morning. And I want to begin with understanding that when we think about the idea of persecution, that we'll look at the epistles of Peter. They were written with people going through terrible persecution. And yet it is in these books, 1st and 2nd Peter, that we see him demanding of people and exhorting people, rather, exhorting Christians who are going through persecution. They said that we should live life and love life and should see good days. With persecution, yes. How does God make that happen? He teaches us in his word, and we'll find it in the epistles of Peter. He doesn't take us go somewhere else and find this. We'll find it in the midst of suffering when he's saying, I want you to see good days. I want you to love life. That's not what people are happy with. Life is a burdensome thing to many. And we need to realize God gave me life, and I have this day, and I have this moment in time. It's fleeing by. How can I be happy? Let's notice. We can have inner peace, and there's where the happiness comes from. It comes not from outside wealth, outside circumstances going my way. It's an inner peace in the midst of persecution. Does not Peter write, after he's told them about the hope of heaven, he speaks about the fact that they're going through many types of trials. See, manifold means it's different. It's different for you, different for me. We all have different things, but they center in persecutions, especially as far as the Christian is concerned. It was a persecution upon their faith. That's what we see here. But even in that, you say, well, I'm a Christian, that's my total life, and now I'm going to be persecuted. How can I be happy? Because he will give you an inner peace in the midst of outward pain and persecution coming from the outside. You always can maintain that inner peace. And that's what Peter is putting this in the context of. He tells you what we're looking forward to, and we'll examine that. But he also speaks about that these are manifold trials that are testing us, they're perfecting us, wherein we greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, we've been put to grief in manifold trials. And then he's the proving of your faith be more precious than gold that perisheth. So there's that inner peace. It's a proving process, and we can be rejoicing because we know a process is taking place that would not be occurring if the persecution wasn't coming my way. That's the way we look at it. Secondly, we see the manifold trials. We may even suffer wrongfully. We didn't deserve to suffer, and in the midst of that, we will do what's right. And there's your happiness. Happiness is not what I'm going to be. Happiness comes when you do. And that's what we see with the Christian. In 1 Peter 2:19, would it be pleasant to be with a slave master who was not right toward you, not doing you right, who is froward? For this is acceptable if for conscience sake toward God a man endureth griefs, suffering wrongfully. It's in the context of slavery. But you just keep doing that which is good. Chapter 3 and verse 14. But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, I'm doing right and I'm suffering. Even if that happens, blessed are you. Fear not their fear. Don't you be troubled. In 3:14. And so we begin to see that here we're going to keep on doing right. And there's where we're going to find ourselves having that inner peace. I did what's right. Now what's happening now? This is noise. I did what's right. And these people begin to realize it, that we live around too. But I tell you, the world's going to speak evil of you. Until you prove it by your life, and they'll be able to see that, hopefully. If they don't, you got inner peace because you did right. There's something great about that you can be happy. In 1 Peter 2 and verse 12, Beloved, I beseech you as sojourners and pilgrims to abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul, having your behavior seemly, do what's right, it's proper, among the Gentiles, that wherein they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good works, they may behold your good works, and glorify God in the day of visitation. Maybe they'll be saved when the day of the Lord comes at the end of time. And they will recognize, where did I learn how to live this way? There's the Christian, that's you and I, doing good works Not saying, I've got to be happy. Forcing yourself, doing good works in a world around you. They'll speak evil of you, but notice the doing takes place. And this is what happens. Having a good conscience, that when you're spoken against, they may be put to shame and revile your good manner of life in Christ Jesus. They say, he lived a pretty good life. Not the way I would, and I don't like him judging me and by the life he's living and all those things. We might want to silence them, but they realize they're beholding your good manner of life. And young people especially, when people want you to do things that are riotous living, licentiousness, drugs, alcohol, dancing, sex, premarital sex, all these things, but here in the context of drunkenness, getting drunk, lust, wine bibbings, revelings, carousings, abominable idolatries, wherein they think that it's strange that you don't run with them to the same excess of riot. Speaking evil of you. You are doing right, they'll speak evil of you. You let it happen. Because see, you're not going to be able to challenge that. It's going to take place. You're just going to have to live with that. We're going to see how we do that. But there's an inner peace that comes from the trials they speak evil of. They're saying this about you. And that's they can do that. But you know you've done right. And that can still keep you being happy. I'm anchored to what is true. I'll keep doing that. And some of them may turn around. And God will use me to save their souls. That's happiness, isn't it? There's that enjoyment from the inner peace. We have a positive way of viewing the persecution. That's why Paul in prison could say, rejoice, rejoice. I say, all things rejoice. No, you're in prison, Paul. And we're going through difficult times, Jesus. We sang this morning, I must tell Jesus. I'm telling you, we're going through tough times. But what his word does is that we view that in a positive way. For example, in 1 Peter 1 and verse 7, back to the persecution that comes, that's manifold, that the proof of your faith being more precious than gold that perisheth, though it be proved by fire, here's what we look at. It's just a testing. Though it be proved by fire, may be found unto praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. That's when he comes back again. That's when it'll be worth it all. Because there's glory and honor. God's going to say, here you lived by faith. You did what's right. You had the works of faith. You manifested that before a world that spoke evil of you. Your name was evil in front of them, but you kept on living. You kept on dealing with the persecution that would make many people sad, because we want to be liked by everybody, or most people. We want to be liked. And all of a sudden, you're a Christian, negative, 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 negative. But what you're looking at, I know there's glory that awaits me because I remain faithful. And this was a test. That's all the persecution was. It's just a test. How will I go through that? But I'm waiting for the honor that God will give me when the Lord returns back again in the midst of the persecution. Here's the way we look at it. 1 Peter 4. Again, this whole epistle dealing with persecution. But be happy. And 1 Peter 4, 14 through 16. If you are reproached for the name of Christ, blessed are you, present tense. Not blessed you will be when the Lord comes back again, but blessed are you, because the Spirit of glory and the Spirit of God is upon you. For let none of you suffer as a murderer or a thief or an evildoer or as a meddler in other men's matters, but if the man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God in this name that's being blasphemed, that's being misquoted, that's not being understood, that's being canceled. All of those things can happen. And it doesn't take away our happiness. There's an inner peace because we're realizing the Spirit of my God is upon me at this moment. And there's a glory in that. I'm doing what would have me to do in the midst of this persecution and this trial that we're going through. where many people would doubt God, would be angry with God, all of those things, is just a positive way of looking at things. And there's no real alternative but face the difficulty. You can't avoid legitimate suffering. And there's things that are going to come our way that we can't avoid. And when you get that in your mind, you can be happy through it all. 1 Peter 4, 17 through 19. For the time has come for judgment to begin at the house of God. And if it begins first at us, what shall be the end of them that obey not the gospel of God? He that will live godly will suffer persecution. It's not maybe, it's will. Paul says in 1 Timothy 6. Things we can't avoid. I'll suffer for it, and I'll still be happy. Not because of my will, and I will just determine to be happy. No, it's real. I know the glory of God is upon me at this particular moment, but I also know that indeed this is what I have to do. But how does he look at it? Look at the person that is avoiding persecution because they're not a Christian. Look at them. He said, judgment must first come at the house of God. That's you and me. And if that's the case, and if the righteous are scarcely saved, the word scarcely means difficult. It doesn't mean I barely make it. It means I am going to make it, I'm going to make it, and I will have an abundant entrance into heaven. I don't barely make it in there. That's not what scarcely means. It means with difficulty. All the persecution, all of the false blasphemy about a Christian or about us as an individual. It didn't take away our happiness because we have an inner peace because we're right with God. That's all that matters. And hopefully some will see the good we keep doing. They'll change maybe. If not, I can't avoid that. But what if God allows that to happen to His people that are saved? They're saved with difficulty. What about them on the broad way? This is the easy way to destruction. Where will they be in the judgment? You don't want to be with them. And that's his point. Wherefore let him also that suffer according to the will of God commit their souls in well-doing unto a faithful Creator. He doesn't say commit your souls in positive thinking. He says commit your souls in well-doing, action. And it's when we act with the benefit of others, you will find happiness there. You will find it. It'll be there. You'll wake up the next day and say, what else can I do good? Instead of thinking about the pain and the sorrow that you're going through. There's no real alternative sometimes to face it, but other than face it. But there is an inner peace in how we look at it. And what Peter does is, these are glory and honor. The Spirit of God's upon you. No alternative. Yes, we're going to be saved with difficulty. That's the road we walk. That's for everybody. So we become positive. But we become positive thinkers that issues into good works, action that we do. Then I want to emphasize the enjoyment of just living godly. In the midst of all the persecution, you don't find God's people just divided. Well, I'll have your happiness, my happiness, this happiness, and we become more united. In 1 Peter 3 and verse 8, finally, brethren, be ye like-minded, compassionate, loving as brethren, tender-hearted, humble-minded. Humble enough to consider others. Humble enough to do things for others. But you're united, like-minded. We have the same goals. But look at this. We don't run over each other. We don't sit there and just, well, we're coming together, but we're not really together. No, we're like-minded. We're compassionate. We feel where another person is coming from. We are loving as brethren. We're like brothers. We came from the same womb, brothers and sisters. We came from Christ and the salvation through Him. So we become like-minded, we become courteous. We are compassionate. It's not something we have to do. It's something we feel for the others. This will be a benefit. I want to be helpful. Yes, we're going through persecution, but I'll be courteous because I'll be tender-hearted, compassionate, and that takes humility. When it's all about us, we're not humble. Good works. How can I help others? That's the key we're looking at. So he wants us in the midst of persecution to be united. Our focus should be together. We be courteous to one another. We need to resist getting even. But that becomes happening when we're being persecuted wrongfully, when we think we don't deserve what we just got, and we want to get even. That's not the Spirit either, because in that same context he says, not rendering evil for evil, or I'll blaspheme them, say something bad about them, reviling for what they said about me, but contrariwise blessing. For hereunto you are called that you should inherit a blessing. Verse 12 and 13, the eyes of the Lord upon the righteous, the ears upon their supplication. He hears their prayers. The face of the Lord is upon them that do evil. And who is he that will harm you if ye be zealous of that which is good? That's not just, I'm zealous for that which is good. I got a lot of good, positive thinking thoughts to make me happy. No, I'm zealous to do good works. And you know what? That's something we can always do. Even when we are restricted in our society of going here and going there, we can do good things for people. And so you're coming with, you said about yours, you said about you, that doesn't bother me. It's just, I'm not going to get even. That's not my pursuit. I care about other people. You're focused. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. But getting even when people hurt you, ooh, that's easy to do. We need to guard what we say. In 1 Peter 3 and verse 10, he says, for he that would love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and let his lips that they speak no guile. We studied this in a sermon last week about Psalm 34, that David indicted himself. He spoke lies in order to get away from persecution and from the harm. And to pursue peace is what Jonathan did with his own father, between him and David. That psalm was saying, this, we didn't do this, but Jonathan did this, but David didn't live up to what he should do. He's writing about that. And we don't say lies. We don't say things that are full of guile and deceit and leaving people think certain ways about other people. All those things, getting evil, we need to guard what we say. That's part of living a godly life. And we need to seek peace and pursue it in verse 11. Oh, we all want peace. I'm seeking peace, or you pursue it. That word pursue means a dog is on the scent. And you got a bird dog, and you got a dog that's trained to go get that scent. They don't sit there and say, I'm seeking it, but you're not pursuing it. No, they're pursuing it. They're going for it. That's how we ought to be. But you know what? I've done that before, and I'm the one that gets hurt. Yeah, I've done that too. Trying to work things out, even between preachers. I thought I was doing good one day to tell a preacher, I think he'd like to talk to you, and that guy hung up on me. And I was trying to help two brothers get together. Well, I'm the one that got hit. Back then you hung up, and you felt it. But that happens. So what? I'm trying. Working to do what we can. Now it's your problem. But when you're actively pursuing peace, sometimes we can go the extra mile that with compassion and I see where you're coming from. How about let us solve the problem? And it can be done among brethren, so we can be happy again. Living godly is not easy. There's some difficult commands that demand us to live in a certain way. And what we're going to have to do is what Peter says in 1 Peter 3 and verse 15, in this midst of pursuing peace and good and seeing good days and happy days. He says, verse 13, who is he that will harm you If you be zealous for that which is good, but even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, blessed are ye. You're in a happy state if you're thinking correctly, and fear not their fear, neither be troubled. Don't fear what they can do to you, and don't even let it trouble you. Don't let it cause you to be distracted. Do what's right, good works. But what do I need to do? Sanctify, set apart in my heart Christ as Lord. Lord, I know that's what you'd have me to do. I'm going to do it. And make that your pursuit. That's a pursuit of happiness? That's exactly right. It's exactly right. Being ready always to give answer to every man that asketh you a reason concerning the hope that is in you, yet with meekness and fear. Sometimes we think, well, I'll just live a godly life and they'll see my good moral character. And they will ask me, what makes you different from everybody else? And I think that's true. But you know what can be real powerful? And I see this in a lot of you. That you go about your work, you go about your daily activities with grace in your heart, actively doing good for others. And inside you got it all worked out. Persecution's coming. But you have that inner peace because you're doing right. But you're just not thinking good thoughts and trying to be happy. You're busy with grace in your hearts, doing things for people as if you really enjoy helping somebody. That's the person I want to talk to. What makes you tick? Because I'm interested in me. I'm interested in how should we think? And we take it in just our little self. How can I be happy? I mean, it's been said over and over again, happiness is what happens when you're pursuing other things. And that's so true. It comes on you from different angles. But you're happy. And that's why we need to learn how to receive from others as well. Because there's not much happiness when nobody appreciates what you're doing. And that they don't want to receive anything from your hand because they don't want you to be bothered. They have all sorts of good reasons. But sometimes we as Christians need to learn how to receive things from people and be happy. Thank you. Because they're seeing a need and trying to deal with that. And we as brethren need to be good workers and we need to be good receivers. And I think we'll be a happy people. And we'll have a lot of people being helped in this difficult time of unhappiness. What we just read is the fact that when does the world ask of us? When they see these things happen in our lives, they see you doing good works and you're enjoying doing good works and you don't seem to get tired of doing good works and you seem to be happy with yourself and look what you're doing. What are you about? And that's when we just read, being ready always to give answer to every man that asketh the reason concerning what? I have a hope that lies within me, and you do it too. It's heaven. But my head's not up in the sky that it's not affecting me here. That's the problem with atheism. And all your head's up in the sky, you're thinking about it. Why don't you deal with the things here on earth? Yeah, that's what we can do. And a lot of times, it's the little kindness that you can do that maybe nobody can do at that moment. It's the little acts of kindness that make so much difference in people's lives of this time. And when we're all doing that, what got you busy doing this? Because I'm free of worrying about my destiny. I'm free from what Sayers gets, whatever my Christian is, whatever my teaching is. I'm free from all their criticism. I'll just keep doing what I need to do. And you do that. You're going to be healthy. You're not going to avoid legitimate suffering. but you'll know how to deal with it. And it's not positive thinking. It's active doing, coming from a heart that's anchored in heaven. And says, I got a little time. Let me try to help people see Christ living in me. And when we do that, and we have grace in our hearts and all that we do, I think we'll be the type of people we should be. After all, when you look at the Old Testament, when he says, all have been heard, fear God and keep his commandments, because it's the whole duty of man, fear God and keep his commandments, doesn't mean you're not living happy lives. Doesn't mean you're not enjoying your life, your day, each day that you live. Paul said it to Timothy, you teach those rich people. Those people in Ephesus, you teach those rich people that they don't make riches their goal, their God. But you make God, the God who gives us all things to enjoy. God has given us life to enjoy. God has given us blessings to enjoy. But it's always in the context, I'm serving God. I'm not serving me. I'm not serving mammon. I'm not serving wealth and all of those things. I'm using it to God's glory. And when we get our head on straight there and then we actually do those things, and I say, well, I want to do some great thing. Just do a little thing. You'd be surprised how beneficial that is for people and how happy you will be because you've been able to help someone. And that day you can enjoy. And the next day you can enjoy. We can be happy in the midst of suffering. 1 Peter teaches us that. And so we're not avoiding suffering. We're just making sure I don't want to suffer as a meddler in other people's business. I don't want to suffer as a murderer. I don't want to suffer doing wrong, that I have to pay the price. That's not the route I'm going. But if I have to suffer because I'm doing good, I'm at peace with that. And I will let no man rob me of my joy in Christ. That's the nature of Christianity. No man can do that unless you let them. Let's don't get caught up into this world in the rat race. We sung a song, content to let the world go by, having no gain or no loss. I'm not getting the rat race of wealth. I'm using what I have. No gain, no loss. I just use it to God's glory, and then I'll die. And my hope is secure in heaven. That's the way we should live. And let this world pass by. No, we're not really letting it pass by. That's not my achievements. That's not my goal of being rich. I'm going to let the world pass by and see what I can do to help them come to Christ. A lot of times it could be the little things that helps them. It makes you happy too. So let's be a happy people, be a godly people, and we will please God in the process. This morning, if you're not a child of God, yet you haven't come to Christ, why not do that? Every time I read in the book of Acts where people were baptized into Christ, when they were baptized into Christ, they either ate together rejoicing or they went on their way rejoicing. You want to be happy? Why not take the guilt to have the guilt of sin taken off of you? And you can't do that yourself. You can't do that with positive thinking. You're going to have to come to Jesus, let his blood cleanse you. We're here to help you and assist you and rejoice with you because of your being saved this morning. Come as we stand and as we sing.